When I was born, I was immediately removed from my biological mother's home. She had many struggles, including fighting an addiction to drugs and alcohol. I'd like to share one of my earliest memories of my birth mom, and I'll warn you in advance that I might get a little choked up. But I know I've got a lot of support in the audience. My adopted moms, Elise and Ellen, my former foster parents, the Burtons, my Nana, Cara, and all of my friends at the Mockingbird Society. So here I go. We were at Chuck E. Cheese, a place where most kids love to go. I was really young, maybe 3 or 4, but I remember being there with her. And OMG, let me tell you, seeing that big, old, ugly Chuck E. Cheese mascot terrified me. It was a big rat in this hairy costume. But during this visit, my birth mom held me. She tried to comfort me as I cried in terror at seeing that rat. She held me close. She started dancing with me in her arms, and she was laughing. She kept trying to get me to understand that we were having fun. She encouraged me not to be afraid of Chuck E. Cheese. I remember that feeling of connecting with her. So the next year, when my foster parents asked me where I want to go for my birthday, I told them Chuck E. Cheese. Why? Because that's where I connected with my mom. I thought she loved that place. And if we went there, I thought my mom would certainly join us. I remember waiting in the parking lot at 7-Eleven. With my foster parents, we intended to meet up with my birth mom and head to Chuck E. Cheese. But things didn't work out as planned. I waited and waited and waited. She never showed. The next year, same story, waiting and waiting and waiting. As a kid, you simply can't understand. You can't understand that your mom won't come. You just keep asking the question, why? It's safe to say that most youth in foster care have had the experience of waiting for someone that never shows. For many of us, this is a painful experience, and it causes anger and sadness. If you were in my shoes, I'm guessing you'll feel angry and sad too. Throughout my life, people have attached many labels to me, good and bad. I'm a proud network representative, an aspiring social worker, and a committed youth outreach worker at the 45th Street Youth Clinic. I've also been seen as a victim, an angry young adult, and someone who has experienced her fair shares of troubles with the justice system. I bring up these challenges so you can appreciate how far I've come. When you leave today, you'll appreciate that the sadness I've experienced has made me stronger. The violence I've survived has made me more resilient. And Mockingbird has helped me understand that I am not someone who's broken and needs to be fixed. I am someone who has valuable insight, expertise, and passion. By listening to me, by hearing my story, together, we can figure out ways to make our system better for youth like me. During my earliest years, I went through 6 foster placements before I was adopted. I don't really know why I went through so many homes. Most kids don't. But I suspected that my temper had a lot to do with it. At 8 years old, I was adopted by 2 women, Elise and Ellen. I imagine they pictured a storybook ending to my foster care experience. I was a young girl who had a tough life. They planned to give me a good home, quality education, and everything I needed to thrive. But there was one hitch. It was so hard for me to connect, hard for me to control the anger I sometimes felt inside. The impact of moving so much had taken its toll. The pain, it just doesn't easily go away. I remember throwing temper tantrums whenever Elise and Ellen would leave. I'm talking about the worst temper tantrums you can imagine. From the time they left to the time they came home, I would scream. I remember always feeling alone, like I didn't belong. that when people who loved me, when they left, I thought I'd never see them again. In middle school, things got worse. I became the girl who had 2 moms. And back then, kids were really cruel, and this made me feel even more alone. But I struggled through. When I reached high school, my respect for authority reached a new low. I wanted to play by my own rules, and that was hard for my adoptive parents to take. I acted out. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I sold drugs, and eventually, I left home and dropped out of school. I hit the streets. Was I looking for a new family? No. Did I find one? Yes. Some of the people I found made me feel special. They made me feel loved and important. The only problem was, these people didn't really love me. They took advantage of me. On the streets, I began engaging in destructive behaviors. My adopted parents tried to help me, but I wouldn't let them. In my mind, it was just a matter of time before they left too. Around this time, I met someone. At first, he was caring and made me feel special. And then he started controlling me. And eventually, he became violent. Things went downhill. I got arrested for carrying his drugs. The violence continued. I felt lost and really alone. Mockingbird has taught me not to overshare certain details of my life, so trust me when I say that this relationship was long and very painful. One day, my life hit a major low, and I wound up in the hospital. I sat with my mom, Elise, and we had a real talk. She helped me understand my options. I could stay on the streets. I could go to prison. I could wind up dead, or I could change. I could untangle myself from the mess I was in. I decided to change.